Well, New Zealand has declared American far-right group, the Proud Boys, a terrorist entity. The group played a significant role in the storming of the US Capitol last year following Donald Trump's defeat in the presidential election. The decision on their terror status here was posted in the government's official journal of record, the Gazette, this week. It's the first time a US-based group has been added to our terrorist entities list. For more on what it all means, I'm now joined by distinguished Professor Paul Spoonley of Massey University. Paul, who are the Proud Boys? The
Proud Boys are one of the new generation of far-right extremists. They were formed in 2016 in New York by a Canadian called Gavin McInnes. They claim to be in favour of white Western civilizations. So chauvinist, they call themselves chauvinists, but in fact you don't have to go far to see that they're deeply racist, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic. And you would have seen them firstly in the 2017 Charlottesville march, Unite the Right, and where the slogan was, they will not replace us, or Jews will not replace us.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, the sort of emboldening of these groups. Why have they been designated as a terror group here?
Well, we designate terrorist groups for two reasons. One is that the UN Security Council says that they're a terrorist group, so Al-Qaeda falls into that. And then we designate ourselves, the country, New Zealand, designates certain groups, and so Shining Path, certain IRA groups. So we identified the Christchurch shooter as a terrorist, and now this is the second example of a far-right group, and of course an American group, and as you said before, the first American group to be designated a terrorist group.
And what does it mean practically? Does it mean that members or associates of this group aren't able to travel here? What is, if New Zealanders are in touch or have their material, what does it mean?
Well, there's no evidence that the Proud Boys are here in New Zealand, although I know there are sympathisers.
Yes.
But what it means is that anybody that helps them, so recruits, provides financial support, can then be charged in New Zealand. So it's a signalling that this is a terrorist group and that New Zealanders should not be involved with it.
And more broadly, is it also a stand against white supremacy? We know that that is the greatest domestic terror threat in the US, for example, are white supremacists.
Yes, and so the Royal Commission has identified some of the gaps in New Zealand, and one of those gaps prior to March 2019 was that we were looking in one direction and not looking in another. So now we've firmly moved to look at far-right white supremacist groups, and so this is another chapter. And by the way, it's just coincidental that it has been announced now. It's a very long process, and it's at the Prime Minister's discretion, but coordinated by the police. So that's why the police announced it today.
And it's happening at an interesting time, I suppose, globally as well. We've had the Proud Boys were involved in the storming of the Capitol, and we've had those hearings this week.
Yes.
Is it true to say that white supremacy has been emboldened since the sort of Trump era in the United States?
Yes, I think Trump and other nationalists, I mean, there's some in Europe, have emboldened them. But I think the other thing is that we need to recognise that they've got a very extensive online presence, and that online presence allows recruitment, the circulation of their ideas. So it really is a bit of a problem in terms of how we deal with that. So recruitment and radicalisation are a real issue for us as they are for other countries.
Yeah, we're not immune from it here.
No.
Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Paul Spoonley.